Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of Amputate to Elevate Success, where we have conversations that cut away the clutter, holding most leaders back so that they can elevate to the next level of impact. I'm John Register, two-time and two-sport Paralympic athlete, silver medalist, combat veteran, Hall of Fame speaker, and I created this show to give leaders like yourself navigating high-stakes transitions the tools to lead with clarity, connection, and courage. This show is part of the Elevate Life Executive Series on Beehive, where each week I bring you conversations with extraordinary leaders who have mastered the art of letting go so that they can actually grow. I believe when we learn from those who have navigated change at the highest levels, we can accelerate our own transformation. So, who is my guest today? Well, she's another Hall of Fame speaker who has been lighting up stages across 5 continents. She's a human behavior expert whose high-energy keynotes have captivated leaders from Microsoft to Pepsi to ExxonMobil. She spent over 2 decades helping leaders and teams cultivate intentional connection that builds trust, fuels engagement, and drives real results. And here's something you may not know. Before delivering standing ovations in ballrooms, she was designing sales training programs and leading high-performing teams in corporate America. Her work reminds us that in a world full of noise, connection is the ultimate competitive advantage. Her name? Well, you're about to find that out right after this quick introduction. In studio with us right now, Colette Carlson. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
My privilege and pleasure, John.
Wow. I'm going to start in because if I don't, I'm going to go down a whole different path right now, just because you are in this space right now. Colette, you've had lots of success, as you heard in the introduction, as we let our audience members know. What is one thing that you had to amputate in order to elevate to that success?
Still on the journey, John, but I've come a long way, and it's a dueling combo of a need for approval, the whole perfectionism, combined with my need to be in control. Mm-hmm. Those 2 elements have really, really slowed me down earlier in my life.
When need for approval, let's kind of take off on that path. Mm-hmm. Need for approval can really, as you said, slow us down. When you're looking at executives that are in leadership or new leadership positions, how do you get them out of that need to be right or need to be seen or have that approval from their team members or their board of directors that might be governing them?
Yeah, and let me spin it a little bit. For me, that need for approval meant that I had the disease to please. I wanted everybody to like me. And so even though I didn't speak my truth, in other words, I wasn't good at holding people accountable because then they may not like me. I wasn't talented enough to lean into those challenging conversations that you need to have as a leader. And so I got to the point where I realized that I was a big fat liar. Because anytime that our thoughts, our words, and our behaviors are out of alignment, we're not speaking our truth. And so then I kind of went on a mission of healing to help me learn to speak my truth, not my mind, big difference, in order to not require somebody liking me and instead doing the job that I was set up to do. And as we know, once you cross that barrier of learning and healing, people end up respecting you. And so you get everything that you really looked for, and life is so much easier, and you're helping them as a leader grow because your goal is to guide. You can't guide if you're not being real with people. So I had to let go of this ideal of what I thought people needed me to be and instead be real.
So same question then, and for those that are in those leadership positions and they feel like they need to be liked. Was there a system, a process? And here's where I'm coming from. There's a woman, her name is Jade Simmons, another amazing, talented speaker, plays concert pianist. And one of the things she talked about was purpose and what our purpose is. And our purpose, that she defined in a book, is not what we do. It's really what other people do because of what we do.
Mhm.
And so I loved how she framed that. And so with that lens, take us back into that world of needing to be liked and needing to be approved for that new executive, and understanding his or her purpose.
Mhm. Well, I think if everyone's going to be honest with themselves, at some point in their life, no matter how confident they are, no matter how much they've achieved, they question if they're enough.
Mhm.
If they're just lovable as they are. And so for me, that's really where I had to start. I had to go in and do I did the Evelyn Wood version of therapy. Like, hey, you tell me to paint the car blue by next week, I'm going to paint it because by goodness, I want to move through this. And I really believe that was the catalyst for me, back in my mid-20s, where I recognized that if I was looking outside for what I needed to give myself inside, I was never going to win, right? Approval is a losing game. And so it started with a lot of healthy healing and self-talk. I mean, I had to rewire, right? This is nothing, neural nuggets up here. I just had to rewire. I had to take risks. I had to lean in and practice some of those challenging conversations. Let's say maybe I tried them out with my neighbor first versus my employee. But then I realized how when I created a model to help me learn how to have those conversations. And when I applied the model, it worked for me.
Mhm.
And it allowed me then to get clear and clear on my purpose, that I just wasn't here to achieve this goal myself, but I was here to model this behavior and share the tools and techniques with individuals so they too could get real about who they are and letting go of the old tapes that just don't serve any of us, because I think that most of us still on some level at some point in our careers we deal with imposter syndrome. All of those elements pop up, and especially if you have success, sometimes you're like, wait a minute, like, well, they're going to find out any day now that I really don't know what I'm doing. And so it starts with awareness, right? For me, I started to really notice and journal every single time there was a disconnect. When I caught myself saying one thing but thinking another, or thinking one thing and saying another, and I would journal that down, and then I would go home and I think, okay, how could I have handled that differently? What got in the way of me speaking my truth? What was I afraid of? What do I need to do to better prepare for next time? Is there a way to still correct this situation moving forward? How can I think about having this conversation in a clear, sincere, and respectful way tomorrow? And I just really, but it's awareness. It started with awareness, and it also came with acceptance, right? Not beating myself up for what I wasn't already, and accepting where I was at. And I think a lot of people have an issue with accepting where they're at because they think that they, should be something greater, or if they accept themselves, that means that they're not growing or achieving or trying to gain success. But really, acceptance allows you to stop beating yourself up for what you are not and start at a level playing field. So that is also key.
Yeah, I like that part of acceptance, and where my mind was racing to at that point is a lot of athletes they get stuck. And what I mean by that is they get stuck not in their growth of their own career, but they stop doing things that shares or shows them that the career may end, right? And where I'm going with this is the transition piece from going from like a professional athlete back to like a recreation athlete, or going into coaching space, or a high school student going on into college, or the college person going into the workforce. There is a preparation that has to begin, and being okay and comfortable with your identity to say, I need multiple paths in order to get to the next iteration or version of myself. My coach, Remy Korchimny, Ukrainian, he said, John, everything is training. And so what I took that to mean is that don't put all your eggs in this basket over here. You need to use these experiences, you're traveling around the world in sport. So reach out to like the State Department, tell them you're in town, get on board with, the AmCham, the American Chamber of Commerce, as you travel, so that you're building a portfolio. And this is what I coach athletes on right now, on how to build your portfolio as you're in as you're in your season, because that's their time of earning. So I love that, what you're saying, and to know yourself. And I call that inside of the reckoning moment. You're shaking your head, so I don't know if you have some more thoughts on that.
Well, I just think it's just such a shame when people, don't accept where they're at, because it stops you from growth. And when you accept who you are and you're aware enough to what you're doing or not doing, right, that's working, and then you accept where you're at, well, then you have that clarity, that mindset, and you can then seek out what you need to do or ask, right? Find, I'm a big asker. I'm all about getting your ask together, as I always say on stage, because, we need to ask for help. That was the hardest thing for me to do, right? I was raised in a stoic family. Asking for help meant you're a loser. And it really it was through therapy that I realized that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's the healthiest way to stay strong. And,
Right.
and so again, key to, moving forward as that new leader that you're talking about, you don't know what you don't know, right? And you can't grow if you don't know. So you have to start, in a way, almost asking others for their observations, for their feedback from your teams. What's one thing I could do that would make our working relationship more productive? You have to be willing to hear the truth, their truth, may not be your truth, but their truth, and take it in and hear it without trying to become defensive, which is just what most of us have a tendency to do, right? It's human nature. We want to protect ourselves. So
Yeah.
we reflect or deflect what someone is saying to us instead of reflecting on the message with the goal of recognizing this is going to make us a more effective, connected leader.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see you on main stage at the Influence Conference because we were all doing this 6-minute drop in, right? So I'm in the back, I'm all nervous. You're on stage already, not nervous. You're crushing it, killing it, doing your audience interaction piece of your 6 minutes, and I'm doing content that connects. So I didn't get a chance to see you on stage, but I did get a snippet of you, and I think it leads into my next question around. In multi-generational, multicultural workplace, how can leaders bridge communication gaps without losing authenticity? And so I think we're on that pathway. So I want to play the clip, and I want to get your response from it right after the clip plays.
They say that AI will handle data and the repetitive tasks. I say, bring it on, because that will allow us to do the only work that will matter as leaders, as salespeople, and as team members, leaning in to the human edge. What's that? It's all the skills AI can't replicate. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present.
AI can't replicate it. I love that line. I said, oh, that was good, good, juicy. Help unpack that for us.
Think about our world. We are disconnected, we are distracted, and we're living in a time when there is just all we are forced to do is accelerate, morph, embrace change. I mean, that is challenging. In fact, due to technology, the pace of change has never been this fast, and yet it will never be this slow again. All right. So with that said, what needs to happen is people need to lean into their human edge. To me, that's the resilience, the empathy, the connection that builds the trust. It all comes back down to really incredible emotional intelligence and the ability to communicate and choose your words wisely and showing up for people in ways that allow them to feel seen, feel heard, belong, feel human. So that's what I'm referring to there. And when it comes to leadership, what happens is, and I understand this as well, I mean, I interview 2 to 3 leaders a week for my programs, right? I'm in all industries, and I hear the same thing over and over again. They feel such pressure from the top to produce, right? To be productive, to hit those KPIs and really motivate those people to do it. But really they're not given the tools or the time to build the relationship so that someone actually wants to produce, wants to be productive, feels seen and heard. And that requires elements such as really effective one-on-ones, right? I mean, research shows those are a superpower for a leader, but I'm meeting leaders that manage 45 people. I mean, how in the world do you have that much time for one-on-ones? When we're talking about multi-generational communication, for example, I'm all about meeting people where they're at. All right. That's not about losing your authenticity and being who you are. I mean, I may prefer, the phone because, I'm old sales girl, right? I like to smile and dial. I like to hear the voice. I know that I can influence someone and connect with them much more effectively if we're doing something like this, a visual talk or a phone conversation versus jumping back and forth in emails. Mm-hmm. But what that demands is that both parties need to meet one another where they're at, and they need to come up with a, communication flow, a work with me document where they outline what their preferences are, and they also do their best to honor those preferences, but still grow their skills. So let me give you another example. I talk to older leaders and they're like, I wish the people would just pick up the phone. They send the emails back and forth. And then I also say to them, okay, but are you currently embracing asynchronous tools? Because right now people are overwhelmed with meetings, and so many meetings do not need to happen if they will use asynchronous tools to at least do all the pre-work or post-work, allow input brainstorming. And this people can do at any time of day. It doesn't have to happen at 3 p.m. once again in the afternoon. You can get so much more done. You get introverts to actually give their input without being dominated by the person who's always doing the talking at the table. But do they? They're like, well, no, they'd rather just call a meeting, right? Sometimes with, no agenda and no end in sight. So this is where I mean, like, there's tools. You can't just expect everybody to come to you. As a leader, to me, you go to them, or at a minimum, you meet each other halfway in different modes.
So fascinating. I'm writing some notes here. The first is around in that when you were talking about that the leader that has 41 to 45 direct reports, and there's no way they're doing one-on-ones like that. It's just it's impossible because you're managing too many people. One of the things I share in my resilience action model is the renewal. Once we have made that kind of the cut, the release, the commitment, or what I call the amputation, that's a total commitment. Now we're no longer the expert. Right. And so we have to give ourselves space and grace to grow, not only for ourselves, but for our teams as well. So that's what I hear you saying there. Give yourself a little grace, give yourself a little space to grow, because just because you're in the new position now doesn't mean you actually know how to actually operate in that position. So you have some growth to do there. It usually takes about 6 months, for that to transpire if you're working with a good coach. I know you do that and helping people through that, and I do as well. The second thing is in the overwhelm. Folks are so overwhelmed right now. They just can't take one more thing that's on their plate. And so why Amputate to Elevate really works well here is because we're starting with releasing stuff. What's you got to get rid of right now? And so with that in mind, you're coaching a new executive that's coming through. What do you tell them? They're overwhelmed with 41 different direct reports that they have. What should they be releasing in order to, because it feels like they're putting things on. They feel like I just gained 41 people.
Yeah.
I need to get rid of 42 of them.
I would personally ask each individual, I would send out, an email or whatever in your meeting introducing yourself. I would say, I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to noodle on it, but by the end of the week, I want to hear back from everybody their answer. And I also want you to know that this is straight talk, okay? Because ideally, I can't create change without really hearing how you're thinking and feeling and what you're up to. So my question to each of you is, if you were able to eliminate one task that you felt is unnecessary in order to still achieve our goals, what is that specific element? Because you might find out that they're doing a duplicate report, or there's, even something in their software that's just creating a time bug, or it takes forever to get information from another department on X, and that slows them all down. So I would start by asking them what they feel is duplicitous and can be removed, and look at that first. Then I would look at what my expectations are from above. How often am I expected to report in on certain stats? Is there another way to gain them? Is there an AI workflow that could handle some of what I'm learning about now? So, it really does require that you take time to gather information and then reflect and come up with a solution. And this is really where I think AI can support individuals now, because you can even feed all those answers from the emails of the 45 people into AI and ask them, geez, what are the top 5 recommendations you would have? How would you build a case so I could go to my supervisor to eliminate number 1? It can help you gain those skills to start helping you eliminate the overwhelm. And this is, again, where you need to speak your truth, because too many people, when they get the next assignment on their plate, right, they don't stop and say, look, this sounds like an incredible project. Right now I have a 6-burner stove. I've got 6 pots boiling high. And I just want to make sure that the pot I'm removing in order to put this one on as a priority is in alignment with your thoughts. They don't ask for they just say, okay, because they want to, again, prove that they're wonderful, right? Nobody pushes back, and it just trickles down.
Yeah.
So people have to also speak their truth.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears now, another direction. Thank you for going deep on that one. That was really great. You actually just helped me out. You don't even know it. So on that question, that's awesome. Got it into my toolkit right there. I want to know, and you can think on this for a few seconds here. What is lighting you up right now? What is just so, I just love this in my life right now. So think on that for a second. And we'll be right back right after this commercial. We are about to hear an incredible insight from Colette, but I first want to pause just for a moment. I have found that the best leaders I have worked with who are navigating high-stakes transition do one thing to navigate change. They learn what is necessary to amputate in order to elevate to their next level of success, to lead through disruption, to drive a high-stakes initiative. And I'd love to bring my Amputate to Elevate keynote to your next event. It's more than just a speech. It's a transformative experience, an interactive experience that equips your leaders to adapt faster, communicate clearer, and lead with courage. So visit johnregister.com, JOHNREGISTER.com, to start the conversation. And let's create an event your people will never forget. Now, let's get back to Colette. All right. Hey, so what's lighting Colette up right now?
Well, from a business or career point of view, I would say that I'm thrilled that the business world has caught up and is buying into what I've always known to be true for the 20 years I've been speaking. I got a lot of pushback in the beginning of my career because I wasn't going about things the same way as others. So for example, when I was a national sales trainer and I would go out and start working with companies, all the sales VPs wanted me to do was teach the power closes, teach my people the power closes and how to overcome those objections. And I'd be like, but it's not about closing the sale. It's about opening up the relationship. Yeah. Well, teach them these closing techniques. right? So I've been around a while. And so like, I've just been same thing with like vulnerability and talking about, it took COVID for a lot of people to go, gee, maybe we really need to get to know the soul behind the role. Just things that I've recognized from the beginning of time were the key to really succeed and get ahead and network with people and make people want to help you, want to open up doors for you because you invested in the relationship. It was always about bringing value. I learned early from my parents that it's about being a giver. And when you're a giver, people want to give back. It's law of reciprocity. I don't do it for that reason, but so it's just nice to see that we're recognizing that we are not machines. We are people. And I'm thrilled to see command and control outside of the military die, I love seeing the changes, even in sports. I love that coaches have to be more aware to say, you're running like a girl, or like just comments. I love seeing diversity. In fact, it's really kind of, we won't go there because sometimes I get frustrated that I feel like we go forward,
Yeah.
But that's what brings me joy, is that we're at a place where you cannot, you can still stand in your ivory tower and believe what you want to believe about how things should get done. But all the research supports what I will call the soft skills, right? Connection isn't soft, it's a strategy. When you find out that, people are more likely to stay 6 years or more, 175% of people are more likely to stay 6 years or more when they feel connected in the workplace, right? When McKinsey did their study during the great, when everybody's leaving, you know what I'm talking about, not the Great Escape. I had the movie in my brain. You know what I mean? And just a few years ago. And then McKinsey did this study, they asked leaders, why are people leaving? And it was, well, they're leaving because of work-life balance and mental health. Well, partly true. Compensation, yes. Overwhelm, yes. But when they asked the employees of those leaders, why did you leave? Over 53% of them said, because I don't feel valued by my manager. 52, I don't feel valued by my organization. 51%, I don't feel like I belong.
Right.
Okay.
That's it.
So that's what I'm saying. The research is everywhere now. If you could stick your head in the sand and pretend it's not, but you need to lean into your human edge if you really want to be a effective, connected leader.
I get a lot of people that want to come into the professional speaker realm. I'll use that right now because both of us are in this realm. So I'm going to switch hats from my CEO hat to the CEO of my company hat, right? So let's did that. And one of the things, what they're looking for that I find for like the last maybe 75, literally 75 that have asked me, is the silver bullet. Right. So if I just take this program, if I just get this course, if I then I can just get on stage, I can just say this thing. Because that's my truth. That's where I need to be. And I'm like, you have something to say because we all do. We're all created individually fingerprint. There's no one else that's like us. And we have a vibration that connects with others. But the silver bullet, if there ever is one, is relationships. It's in the soft skills. And you can't fake that. It is something that must be, that's where the work really takes place, because no one's going to really put you on the stage, not too many people, if they don't know, like, or trust you, because their reputation is on the line. And where people have been getting burned right now is by some of these fly-by-nights, or I won't even say fly-by-night, that's kind of the wrong terminology. People that have...
They're people that are incongruent.
They're incongruent, but they've done the speaker reel. They've put themselves in front of an audience that's a like audience because everybody's got the same audience in there. And they get these dynamic sizzle reels, and then they can't put 3 words together on the stage that goes beyond what their sound bites are. And with people now checking you against with AI on what you're saying, trying to understand, who else is saying this as well. If you can't get beyond that level of depth, you're in trouble, because now your credibility is going to be shot. So it's best to do the work, is what I say. Get the relationships established so that you are seen as a true thought leader and not saying somebody else's thought and passing it off as your own. Would love your thoughts on that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when people say to me, why do you think you've had success? I say, well, first, I genuinely like people, like I really do. And number two, I wanted to be a teacher. My mom was a teacher on the south side of Chicago. I grew up wanting to do that. And my mom's like, oh, but in today's world, Colette, there's opportunities besides the traditional careers. Get into the business world. And it really took me a while to figure out that, oh my gosh, there's a training department. I'm just going to teach adults. So I think for me, my success is because I love to be fun and entertain. Like, I can't stand store and bore teachers, right? But I remember those teachers that always made learning fun, and they said things in a way that impacted my head and heart. And that's the kind of teacher I wanted to be. So I think my success has come from the fact that, first of all, I'm a lifelong learner, right? I'm always learning because you have to stay current. But I genuinely want people to learn. I want them to change their behavior. It is not about me. Yeah. Right. I mean, we have a great job. And I mean, how many careers do you know where you get to go up there and tell people what to do and then you get applauded? It blows me away.
My wife and I we're celebrating our 37th wedding anniversary, and that never happens in my house here, right?
Right. I mean, it's such an unusual, but I didn't say, oh, I want to be a speaker so I can be on stage and people applaud. I was like, oh my gosh, I really want people to learn. And I found a business environment to do that. And I'm going to make it fun for them so they pay attention. And like, that's how I keep morphing and growing. And so I think it comes, it comes from, I know the speaking world's changed. I mean, everybody wants to be a speaker. It's like wanting to be an actor or, a coach or I think sometimes too, I get better as I get older because we realize, wow, we weren't right. Or, wow, I thought I had that figured out, but boy, did I have another reckoning. And so time does unfold. You can't be impatient for success. I'm a slow build. I build a solid foundation before I take the next step.
Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I have just gone through another growth myself in the speaking world, and it's terrifying. I mean, it's terrifying to shed what's been past because I've been doing it for such a long time, and I had a person, she was fantastic, and just kind of coached me through some stuff. She let me go for a long time with my story, my kind of signature story, and she said, that story is killer. It's fantastic, and you've outgrown it. It's going to get you on stages. It's going to slay stages. But if you want to make the next jump, it's not that you have to release that story, but you have to reground yourself in it. And because I can act my way through it now, because I've done it for such a long time, and I know exactly where the inflections are, and it will slay. And I can stop in the middle of it. And I can, pull on this and pull on that, and I can wield it and mold it. And she's actually absolutely right. It needs another iteration, another version. And what happened was it started actually, other stuff around it started elevating. So it was amazing. So that story is still kind of in its infancy right now again. So I'm excited about it. But other stuff has just exploded of things I wasn't even paying attention to. And one of the things I love about you and your lifelong learning is that you do extreme customizations on your programs. You are doing deep dives. And I want you just to kind of talk from that speaker leader hat of the customization that you do. How are you using that? How have you found it effective? And for those that are thinking about this profession, why customization really works.
You bet. Well, whether you're a leader or a speaker, right, you have to know your audience, or salesperson. I mean, right? Know your audience. That's 101. And how can you know your audience if you don't take the time to deep dive on who they are, what they're all about? Not just what are their pain points that you drop in here, but I'm talking like the day-to-day grind of what they do. And so in addition to me having conversations with like the committee or the person that hires me, I always ask for someone that's going to be in the audience on the team that is slaying it. You know, like they just wish they could clone this human and, you know, put them everywhere in the company. And then someone who is maybe newer, or someone who's, sometimes I ask for both a newer person and an older person, because I love hearing the older person's like biases and beliefs, and then the newer person's spin on that, to get the full circle of what, and then the ideal. And then, you know, I work really hard to, you know, build that into the presentation. So let's say that I have a story about being more adaptable. So I have a fun story, makes them laugh, you know, we have a good time. But then I come out of it and I'm like, okay, well, where do you need to be more adaptable? Is it? And I can give you 3 very specific things. I mean, it could be something as specific as, you know, they're all fighting the new software that has been implemented. They have it, but they haven't gone through training. So like I can just boom, 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 what I've heard. And because it is so on the spot, so specific, people pay more attention, because it's like, wow, she did her homework. Wow, this isn't a generic presentation. I have people come up to me probably almost after every speech and say, you know, like I was speaking to Delta faucets. How long have you been selling Delta faucets? Never sold one in my life. Bought one when I remodeled the house. But that to me, even if I don't use all the material that I gain, that's what buys me my confidence to step on that stage. And it also kind of goes back to my perfectionism that I work with, because it's like I want, if the room stopped and somebody threw out a really tough question to me, I want to be able to slay that answer, you know? So it's just how, I remember back in the day, I know I'm digressing here, but, you know, we used to teach prior proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I just feel that, you know, the more prepared you are, the more confident you can be, the more you can own the room, the more you're not wasting time worrying about, are you connecting, and you can connect.
Yeah.
And that's when people, again, if they feel you're genuine and you're really there wanting to help and you took the time to know about them, then they're more interested in knowing about you and what you have to say.
Fantastic answer. And you're not digressing at all. Don Yeager and I were just talking about this, another CPAE also. He's written like a gazillion books that are on the New York Times bestselling list. Just a fantastic gentleman. And I just had that happen, right, with this last client I was serving. And I do it a little bit differently, like we all do. And I can do it in the moment, right? So I'm with them and can kind of feel and read the energy of the room. And this one group was, you know, they were talking about, they were in the transportation industry, and one man was from Los Angeles. So being able to connect that with the LA 2028, and how are you going to be doing this? I said, you got a big challenge in your hand right now with all moving the entire Olympic Village as well as the Paralympics that come in afterwards. How are you, you know, using this? And they were like, oh my gosh, how to get in the mailbox that deep, right? Yeah. So that is the homework. That is the real crust of being able to hold that space for folks in that space. So I have one last.
I'm going to interrupt you for one more thought, though, and that's leadership, and that's parenting. I mean, how can you inspire, engage, motivate, encourage if you don't know your employee or your kid, because you don't ask those deeper, richer questions to find out all about them, which then allows you to bring out the best in them.
Yeah. guilty. Guilty. So yeah, step on. I only got 5 toes left. And you stepped on all 5 of those. My final question for you is, forecasting yourself out maybe 10 years from now, and you see yourself in the success of however you want to build your world. Mm-hmm. What are you amputating right now today in order to make that future happen?
It's a great question, because, in truth, John, I feel like I'm living the life I want in 10 years from now already. I've worked really hard to create a sense of balance and carving out time for the people that I love, building in the travel. But I'd say if I was going to have to amputate anything, it's my love of sugar. So I don't have inflammation and I can live many more years. I don't have it very much. I do love it. And I know it's not good for me. So, I guess that's really to answer you. I think it's some of what I will call my more addictive qualities I need to amputate. I'm years ago, back in my teens and 20s, I used food as a way to emotionally cope. And so I used to be 50 pounds heavier than I am now. So I've done a lot of self-growth and change, and yet I'm still an addict at heart. I just learned how to manage it. And so it's really just continuing as I get older to amputate the addictive qualities within myself, because they truly are what gets in the way of my highest good.
Amputate the addictive qualities within inside oneself. Thank you so much, Colette, for being on. Would you stick around just for a few more seconds here? I'm going to close out the show. Thanks for being on, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, Colette, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your humor, and your heart with us today. You've given our audience powerful reminders that connection is a leadership superpower. So friends, if today's conversation resonated, please like it, share it, and follow this podcast. And make sure that you're signed up for my Elevate Life Executive Strategy Session at johnregister.beehive.com, where we dive even deeper into the communication and leadership skills that will set you apart. We have gone international. We have an amazing woman from Denmark. Wow, crazy, right? I know. So you get to join the group, and then you can join Bettina. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. I'm John Register, reminding you, as always, to go forth, inspire your world. Bye for now.